This is Lorenzo, and this is the Training Map Taxonomy video series, lesson number 6, and it's on the second dimensional skill, focusing on the hips in the frontal plane. This is the second part of the two-part hip series. The previous video was all about the hips in the sagittal plane. If you haven't watched that video, make sure to go back and watch that. It's going to make a lot more sense. We've got dimensional skill here on the left, and the topic of this video is looking at hip development in the frontal plane, which is going to have an emphasis on the quads and glutes, just as with the sagittal plane. However, there's going to be an emphasis on the abductors and adductors. We will then look at the various benchmarks associated with this dimension. We will then ask the question, okay, what are the requirements physically in terms of mobility, stability, and strength to master or achieve those performance benchmarks? Okay, so for our first two benchmarks, there are only two in this dimension. They fall under the gymnastics modality category. We have number 8, the middle split, which is a mobility benchmark. And number 9, we have the side squat, which is a strength benchmark. The middle split, our 8th benchmark, is a benchmark of position or range of motion, not of time or load. Remember, as you can recall from the previous video, all performance benchmarks will fall in one of 3 classes. You can measure improvements only in terms of load, how heavy the weight, time, did you improve on your time, and position. You can either get into and hold the position or you can't. For me, you can see I'm still quite far from a full range middle split as the benchmark. So you can either do it or you can't. Yes or no. In my case, I'm not there yet. As for the 9th benchmark and the final benchmark in this series, we have the side squat. The side squat, as you can see here, is a benchmark of position and also range of motion. It's not one of load. I'm not trying to see how heavy I can go in this dimension. It's also not one of time. It's one of position. I can either do the movement or I can't. However, we can also test a person's strength or specifically muscular endurance in this range. So for males, you're aiming for 24 consecutive high quality reps. And if you're female, 15. So whereas developing the hips in the sagittal plane was all about locomotive power or hip extension power, practicing the middle split and side squat is all about mastering lateral control. You're not trying to produce the most power side to side or in the frontal plane. It's more about practicing control. Next, we want to know what are the requirements for us to master the middle split and the side squat. And so if you said or guessed that there's going to be a mobility, a stability, and power or strength component to it, you would be correct. Because in order for us to achieve the middle split and the side squat, we need to work on hip and ankle mobility, ankle and knee stability, and dynamic hip-knee power. A good way to think about this is, if these are our goals, our adaptive capacities, or these requirements of mobility, stability, and power, this is our strategy. We ask the question, okay, if we want to achieve this, we want to know what are the requirements to get there, because then we train for those requirements. And so the strategy is we work on mobility first, almost like a warm-up, ankle stability as pre-activation for the main event or more dynamic work. Also, remember, there are different benefits associated with focusing on or working on either mobility, stability, and power. We can do them in isolation, but we have to do so towards greater integration. That's why I prefer doing this in a single routine. For example, hip and ankle mobility, or focusing on the middle split, as we see here. And by the way, let me just point out that benchmarks are demonstrations of competence, not necessarily the only strategy or the exercises we use to work towards competence. So we have developing towards a skill and we have the demonstration of a skill. So think of this as more as a demonstration or as an assessment, but we may use multiple movements, and we do, to arrive at those goals. And so the benefits of working on hip and ankle mobility in isolation towards greater integration is knee rehab and prehabilitation work. And what makes this dimension so unique is because, unlike in the sagittal plane, we're introducing force vectors towards the medial knee as well as the lateral knee. And so the whole point of training in different dimensions is to expose the body to as many different force vectors as possible so that we can become as resilient as possible. The second benefit is that it will translate into more efficient lateral forces, allowing us to move side to side or in different directions with ease. And as we increase our lateral range of motion, we then want to ensure that we strengthen and develop greater control within that new range as our ultimate hedge against falling. This makes all of our dynamic hip-knee movements more safe. Now, even though mobility, stability, and power are all independent benefits, they will transfer to many other activities such as daily walking, stepping, and specifically side stepping. It will transfer to other movements such as the straddle L and other core activities, including the side arch. It will also address certain adductor and abductor imbalances, so muscles on the sides of the legs for greater balance. Not to mention, certain sports like skiing, fighting, and dance are directly dependent on developing confidence and competence within this dimension.